Good evening for the other one. I'm Bernard Gracia and I'm president of EIPM. It's a pleasure to welcome you on board this webinar for people assessment. It's a big pleasure to be here because it's one of the first webinar in this 30th anniversary of the EIPM. And it's very important for us to speak about people, people evaluation, people assessment, people improvement. People is one of the most important assets of a company. And as a school, we're always very proud to try to improve the competence of people. So today we're going to speak about people. We're going to speak about people assessment. We're going to speak about people team. We're going to speak about how to become one of the best team, how to get the best people. So let's go. I'm just say some words. So before starting the EIPM, I've been working on a postgrad years ago, and the idea at that time was it was one of the first postgrad in purchasing procurement in the world. And the idea was to recruit not the best people in purchasing, but to recruit people who were different. Because at that time, purchasing procurement, supply management was mainly learned on the floor, let's say, and on the field. And the idea was to start recruiting for the first time people coming with a diploma. So the evolution you see in 40 years, the evolution was first to start getting people with diploma in purchasing, which was not a recognized function, to now say, okay, how can we get the best ones? So if I move forward, the first point is what does the best people mean in an organization? We need the best people. Everybody say we need the best people, but very frequently we forget that we need the best people for the best team. I don't need individual people. I need people who are going to complement the other ones to get the best team. In fact, we don't really need the best people in each position. We need that the group be the best one. And this is very important. So what I'm saying here is first, we need the right people for their position, and these right people with the other right people create a right team. And I think this is something sometimes we forget. We try to get the best ones for a position without thinking of the ones who are already here. And we need to coordinate these people. Everything should fit together. So first point is just to get that in mind is the best people for the position in function of the other one. So to get the best team. Now, if I go a bit further on, everybody will recognize here the Peter Krajcik matrix. And so for the ones from human resource, we're not necessarily aware about Peter Krajcik. Peter Krajcik, we say, is kind of Pope for purchasing and supply. This matrix was created in the late 70s. And the idea here is to speak about the bottom here. It's about the supply risks, meaning it's about you have very few supplier or you have a lot of supplier. So this is the first point. So the market here is very difficult. The market on this side is very easy. And here is what we buy is the spend criticality. I just put criticality, but it's about spend criticality. So here we buy very few, or what we buy is not very specific. And here we buy a lot and maybe very specific. So if we understand this matrix is here in routine, it's easy. We are a lot of supplier, we're not buying a lot. Here leverage is we buy a big quantity, but it's very easy because we have a lot of suppliers. Here we buy big quantity or it's very critical and the market is very difficult. And here we buy very few and the market is very difficult. So in a sense, we're interesting quite nobody. So let's start from that because what I said, the best have the exact position. We should have the exact profile for what we're doing. So basically, I can be a best for routine, but it can be a best for leverage. Can I move from leverage to strategic? So what means being a buyer in this? What should be the profile if I'm a buyer in this quadrant of strategy? So first thing is, again, what I'm doing, what I'm buying, to be sure that my profile is fitting with what I'm buying. And as you understood here, in function of the strategy of this product, we understand that we don't need the same profile. And this is the first element to think about. Not everybody can fit in this different quadrant. So first, we have to get the exact profile for a position, and we have to know first what is this position and what we buy. So now if we go a bit further in this matrix, we understand here we buy quite nothing, and the market is very easy. So it's not a question of power, but it's a question of simplifying the process. It's a question of how to implement some new tools. It's a question of how to implement a catalog, how to implement pushing cards, how to implement perhaps outsourcing. And the person in charge of this should master very well the process. So it's somebody who is a key leader in process implementation until outsourcing. So this is a process man, okay? Here in leverage, as we said before, you have a lot of suppliers and we're buying a big quantity. So we understand that here you have a lot of suppliers, we buy a big quantity, so we have a big power on the market. So to get the power even bigger, the first is consolidation. I should be capable to consolidate. I'm going to run competition, meaning create competition in between my supplier, and then negotiation. So here, my role is a classic role of a buyer: consolidation, competition, and negotiation. Classic role of buyer because I have a power here. In here, strategic, we know that the market is very difficult. I may be here because the market is difficult. We don't have a lot of suppliers. And the point is, we should be capable to implement a supplier relationship with the suppliers to limit market risks, and supplier relationship management to limit market risk. We have very few suppliers. Why do we have very few suppliers? Perhaps yesterday we were in this market where we have a lot of suppliers, and due to merge and acquisition, meaning the market, you have 10 suppliers. These 10 suppliers have been merged and been acquired. So from 10, we moved to 2 suppliers. So without doing anything, we're now in strategic. So basically, it's not our fault. We did not change any specification, but the market has been merging and growing by just merging. So my key be how can I implement supplier relationship to limit the risk on the market? I implement other elements, but SRM should be somehow key elements. But on the other end, we may be here because our specifier, the guy who was working in R&D, has been putting some very difficult, drastic specification, technical specification, driving to one supplier. So basically, we are in this position not due to the market, but due to our fault. So basically, the buyer here should have some competence helping him to get this type of improving the relation with stakeholder. I call that also SRM, but it's stakeholder relationship management to limit the design risk. So SRM vis-a-vis suppliers is to limit the market risk. Here is to limit the design risk. So it's two different, and we see it's two different profiles, but this is what I'm leading here. And here we understand we buy nothing, and the market is very difficult. So as we're buying very few, we're not interested on the market. Nobody's going to be interesting for a buyer, but we need this product. So somehow we have to be appealing. I said somehow we should be doing tap dancing just to make people, suppliers, interested by it, even though we're very small. So if we go back on this matrix here, we understand that the profile should be for routine, being capable to implement more and more processes. So process, very strict in terms of process, not necessarily a strong buyer, but process man. Here, this is buyer. He has power. We have a power, a lot of suppliers on the market. So classic role of buyer, consolidation, competition, negotiation. Here, it's somewhat difficult because we have very few suppliers, and we have very few suppliers due to evolution on the market. So somehow we need somebody who is keen to work with supplier in a nice relation. We may be here also due to our fault, due to the very strict specification on the product. So meaning we need somebody who is capable to have nice relation with his stakeholders, to explain the stakeholder that somehow we have to change the spec. We have to work more in a functional spec. And here we hear because the market is difficult. We're here due to the years. It's an old stories, and nobody's interested by us. So this is where we are. This is a matrix, and these are the different position. And we understand that if we were here due to the market, we have been moving here. So here it was not a killer; it's more cowboy. It's a classic growth buyer, and here we have to change the position. So what are the profile we need? What are the competencies we need? So here we understood that we need a process professional, somebody who is very keen, very strong in process implementation. Here in the leverage is somewhat different. We need a good professional using the classic standard purchasing technical tools. So we need somebody who has a strong technical competence in purchasing and procurement, no more. This is the classic buyers implementing of the cost structure, negotiation, consolidation, all these elements. So this is a standard technical competencies. Here, when we say somebody has to be capable to implement a good relation with suppliers, means that the profile within here is more somebody market profile oriented. He knows about the market. He knows very well the market, but he has a very strong behavioral empathy, meaning being capable to work in a nice way with suppliers, listening to the supplier, understanding the suppliers, accepting this type of relation where the buyer say, I don't know everything. So this empathy. On the other hand, we say also we need somebody with stakeholder relationship management. So the first one needs a market oriented. He has to know about the suppliers, about the market. The second one needs to be technical. He has to be capable to understand the different technical elements. When we speak about technical spec or when we speak about functional specs, this guy has to be capable to discuss with the stakeholders. He has to be capable to discuss with stakeholders. So technical, but at the same time, the same behavioral empathy. And this is very important. Sorry. So the idea here is two different profiles. One profile which is about market understanding, but with a strong behavioral empathy. The other one, technical competency, technical understanding, but with also a strong behavioral empathy. And the last one is concerning bottleneck. Is the same as the strategic is he has to know about the market, but not only the classic market, but he has also to know who are the competitor, because sometimes I can get a nice relation with some of my competitors in the market, because for different clients, this product may be perhaps a bottleneck, meaning that it may be representing quite nothing for a lot of clients. And perhaps by consolidating that, by leading this relation, we can get a power vis-a-vis the supplier. So we say here, and it's pretty important to understand this, it's on one hand here, process, a strong process orientation. Here, strong in purchasing tool, classic buyers, I would say. Here, somebody very market-oriented, and also the strong behavioral empathy. Here, more technical-oriented, with also a strong behavioral empathy. And here, knowing about the market, but knowing also that I'm representing peanuts. So basically here, these are the profile we should have for the position for what we're buying. So we're buying something, for what we're buying, we need, in function of what we're buying and what represents what we're buying in the portfolio, we need different profile. And what I'm insisting on here is the same product may move in these different quadrants, and we may not need always the same people. So it's you understand that here it's a team with different profile capable to buy a very specific product on a very specific market. And when we say we have a turnover in the team, is because the product may be in this different quadrant, and I may be changing product, I may be changing my category because my category may be on my different quadrant. I would prefer to say that one person is more specialized in one quadrant rather than to be specialized in one category, because this category may change quadrant, and changing quadrant, the technical elements, the behavioral is changing, is totally changing. So just think about that, trying to get people per quadrant much more rather than getting people per category. So this is a very first point to understand. The second point I would like to insist is on the today's and tomorrow necessary and mandatory competence. So what are the today, I would say, mandatory competence? What should we have today for being successful? We understood through crisis that we have some mandatory profile. So I'm just getting to go back on this. These mandatory skills, you understood that when we are in leverage, these are the classic role of a buyer. The buyer should be good in cost breakdown, cost analysis, in finance to analyze the financial strengths of the supplier, market understanding to select the right suppliers, functional spec, not speaking only and accepting only technical specification, but somehow when we are in stretching, being capable to argue and to argument with the stakeholders, micro and macro economy, to understand the trends, when the market is going to switch, why it's going to switch, what's about elasticity. So these basic elements, which are becoming more and more important because the markets are very fluctuant. Negotiation is still an important element. You're not negotiating only with suppliers to ask for a better price. It's negotiating for volume, it's negotiating with stakeholders, it's negotiating with a startup and negotiating with a big monopoly or big companies in a competitive market is totally different. Competition negotiation is still necessary. Contract and contract management is also very important. Contract management is how to be sure we're going to implement the contract. What are the competence we need to drive this contract to completion? Risk management as ever, and we understand since the crisis that risk is even more important. We are pretty good in terms of designing a risks matrix, but it seems we're not necessarily as good as for implementing this risk analysis. And project management. We're running a lot of projects, and very frequently purchasing are not necessarily involved. So these are the classic, I would say, classic, depending if you go back on the Peter Clashing matrix, you understand that these competencies are used in the different quadrant. Now, what I would like to say is this is the classic way. Since some years now, since the evolution of the technology, when we speak about IoT, blockchain, we can speak also about big data. We speak about artificial intelligence. A lot of people have been saying that purchasing was changing and the role of buyers would be changing. I accept this idea, but the role of the buyer is changing, but the buyer remains the buyer. And you remain a buyer not only for selecting the supplier, because this is very technical and the computer with an algorithm can select a supplier. What is difficult for a computer today and some tomorrow is to get the feeling about the fit. We have all the proof of today that the suppliers can be selected nicely by a computer. Now, it's not because the supplier has been selected that the supplier is going to be well managed. So the relation is in the end of the buyer, is in the end of purchasing. We know that today we're not going to select the same way. A startup and a big company. A startup doesn't have any credential. It doesn't have any organigram. It doesn't chart. It doesn't have any references. It doesn't have perhaps strong bank account. So if you just look at these 4 or 5 criteria, you're not going to select this startup. And even though you need this startup because you understood that these young guys are capable to develop for you what you need in terms of technology or in terms of innovation. So if you look at, if you listen to the computer is going to say no, but you, with your human understanding, you may say yeah, and you're going to take the risks. So what we say is, so with the evolution of all these elements, artificial intelligence, blockchain, we know that the computer is going to have is going to develop much more things. But nevertheless, the role of a buyer is going to be concentrated on the relation. And if we speak about the relation, we have to say that first, we have to speak about marketing mindset. I have to understand about not only market, but about the marketing. And marketing mindset is also about acumen. When I say marketing mindset, the marketing mindset is to be able to understand what the other one needs. So what does my stakeholder needs? It's not only what he's asking for, is what I understand is that he would need. My role is not anymore to make savings. My role is to support the business. So basically, when I support the business, it means that I have to find the right volume and the right price if we are in a market share strategy. My role, and to sell more and more and more, my role is to find innovation and startup if we are in a niche market and have to find innovation. So basically, my marketing mindset is really to understand what we need to be capable to find what we need. So marketing mindset is clear. And we don't have enough marketing mindset people. We don't have sales guys, very few sales guys in purchasing. It would be great if we could recruit much more of them. Business acumen is why are we buying these products or these services? What is it for? Is it for selling more? Is it for selling better? Is it a niche market? Is it a market share market? So this is what we need. Entrepreneurship is somehow to take risks. Is to understand that we can work with the startup because it's key for us for the innovation. Is to take the measured risk. I like to say to take the measured risk. Leadership is to lead the business. To prove the suppliers we have the right client, to prove the stakeholder we found the right supplier. So to involve people, like in the team I was presenting initially, communication and active listening. We know that's one of the key problems in purchasing, procurement, supply management is how to communicate, how to promote what we're doing, how to sell what we're doing, and this is still a kind of crucial element. So what I'm saying here is we need these elements. We have to go a bit more on this additional and more specific behavior. But again, we may say that since the crisis, we have been adding some more. We have been adding agility, trust, humility, ethics, meaning that inside these behavioral elements, we have, when we speak about agility, Dr. Vellechamp made a wonderful webinar last week. You can replay this on YouTube EIPM channel. Agility is the capability of a buyer to move from one idea to another. We're not in a box. It's really being capable to think out of the box and to be capable to bring the innovation we need. Is to be capable to bring innovation on one end, but perhaps to bring big volume on another end, which is not at all an innovative product. So agility, being agile, and being capable to bring what our internal stakeholder needs. Trust. We have to be trustable first. When we say something to a supplier or to a stakeholder, we have to stick to what we say, to be trustable. And we are also to trust suppliers or to trust a stakeholder. Sometimes it's very frequently vague, I would say. So we have to work on this element of trust. The third one is humility. This is very difficult to speak about humility to buyers because when you're in a big companies, you have a feeling that the small company suppliers don't do anything, and frequently the small company suppliers is an expert in his domain, and if he's an expert, he knows exactly what he means. So the humility is to accept from even a smaller one to accept some elements of information. And if you're not humble, the point is the supplier will not respect you one day or another because you're not listening. And again, it's about this relation. Humility is about, at the end, listening. Listening is about trust. And at the end, say, well, if you're not listening to me, why are you coming if you know everything? And if we want to maintain or develop this relation with suppliers, this is a key element to implement, and this is where we have to work on, and to conclude on that is about ethic, and ethic. It's about being transparent and not ethic only vis-a-vis the supplier, but looking at the suppliers for the ethic of the suppliers. So these are key. These are key since some years now. But what has been also changing since the crisis is the four elements. The four additional competences: design thinking, because we have to think differently, and we have been realizing since some years that purchasing procurement were not enough involved in design thinking. They were not keen on. Supply chain. So supply chain is really from this crisis, because we realized with the crisis, it was not a question only about sourcing, to source the product, to source the service, but is to be aware and to be strong in bringing this product where we need it. And we realized during this crisis that one key and weak point was the supply chain. So basically, it's not a question only of buying, it was also a question of mastering the supply chain. And we understand that it has to be learned again and to be practiced again by purchasing, at least to understand. And the workflow management. This is important because we spoke about digital mindset. We understand that we're speaking more and more about digitalization. We put digitalization in all the upstream part, all the RFQ, RFI, and so on and so forth. We put digitalization in the purchase to pay process. We're putting digitalization in, I would say, in all the selection process, invoicing, and so on and so forth. But this is about digitalization. We can speak about much more about digitalization when we introduce the IoT. When we speak here, it's about the big project. We know that digital system, we know the ISIT is everywhere. I'm not speaking about ISIT anymore. We speak about the workflow management. And when we speak about all the ERPs, and the role of the buyer is to be part of. It's not just to bring some data in, but it's understanding how it works, to understand how the organization is working. The workflow is about the organization. The organization is about the strategy. So if we're not capable to link all that, we're not in the process. So I think we have to really think about this competence on workflow management. So these are the competence of today. The competence we had today since years now. It's about the classic, about finance, cost, supply, risk management, functional spec, and so on and so forth. We have been adding some behavioral competence after this technical competence, and we have to include more and more about behavior to facilitate the relation with suppliers. And now, since 1 year at least, we have to include again some more technical, but not necessarily on purchasing, but much a bit on the side, such as design thinking, supply chain, digital mindset, and workflow management. So these are the competence of today and tomorrow. Some are today mandatory and tomorrow necessary. So now, and I just put this motto, the EIPM motto, because we claim that if we don't have values, if we're not respecting suppliers, if we're not transparent with suppliers, we not share the same values, we will never get value from suppliers. So don't kill a supplier and asking them after to help you. So the idea of values are important, and we have to work on that in the team. So this being said, I would like to jump in the third point, which is how to identify required skills and competencies. We understood that in function of what we buy, in function of what we're doing, we should have some competence. These competence have to be complementary. To complete one for me over. I'm buying this product, I should have this competence because I'm this quadrant. My colleague is buying this, he should have another competencies. And I'm the manager, I'm coordinating, I'm the driver or conductor, and I'm also the coach. We understood that. We understood that there is an evolution in the competence. Now, how should we identify and take the best? What we're doing, we have a tool which is called Be Best, Be Competence. And the idea here is really to understand how it works. We start from your job description, okay? And we say, what is a buyer? A buyer is doing a certain number of activities, is doing sourcing, is doing negotiation, is contracting. Our role has been to define the skills. To negotiate, I should need some skills, competence in communication, negotiation. To contract, I should need some competence in legal communication. To source, I should need some competence in marketing and so on and so forth. So we start from your jobs. We look at what the job is done, what the guy is doing, and we associate the right competence. and based on that we have a profile. So basically this is the methodology we have been using. This methodology is based on the fact that we have 47 activities. So the job of buyers is doing sourcing, is doing contracting, is doing negotiation. To do sourcing, there are a certain number of skills. We have together 62 skills. And for each skills, we're going to assess the knowledge, mean the theory, and the know-how, the implementation. So basically, to summarize here, we have a database of 47 activities going from the buyer till the CPOs, all type of activities people are doing in purchasing procurement. And now we have been adding supply chain. These activities are linked to a certain number of skills, 62 skills. And for each skill, for instance, for competence, we're going to validate if you have a theory for negotiating and if you know how to negotiate, which are totally different. So we validate if you know the theory. So we have a series of multiple choice questions, and we validate if you know how to do. We have a series of simulations. So basically, for each competence, we're going to have, so one activity is going to be associated to 3 or 4 competence, or 5, and each competence is going to be assessed in function of a knowledge, some 3 or 4 multiple choice questions, and in function of a know-how is going to be 2 or 3 simulations. So as such, we're going to have a picture for each individual in function of what he's doing, a picture, a mapping of a competence in terms of knowledge. He knows or she knows, or he doesn't know or she doesn't know. He knows how to do or she doesn't know how to do. So basically, we have a picture in terms of theory and implementation. And at the end of the game is to say we're going to have this picture and we understand how to improve the people. So now we say we have a methodology for assessing the people. It's not only assessing people, it's to understand how to improve people in function of the job they have to do. So, and we go back to a job, we go back to what they do, and in function of what they have to do, we're going to select the right competence. So this is exactly, you see what we do. We can customize the tool in function of the CPO, the logistic manager, the lead buyer. We're working for direct and indirect, but we're going to take our complete activities here, the 40 activities, and we're going to have a puzzle, kind of Lego. We build the Lego in function of your jobs to define the mapping of the different job roles you have internally. So basically, we're going to have for each job a description in terms of competence. People in the company are going to be assessed to identify and to go for the mapping of their competence, and we go to job per job. In fact, we can do that in 9 different languages in parallel. We can assess 20 people, we can assess 1,200 people at the same time. So, but we take care, it's very touchy because we're speaking about people. So we're not speaking about assessing people for judging them. We're analyzing how they can be improved in your team in function of what they do and what they should do, and the competence they should have. So this is the idea. So now the question is, I'm going to present a bit in detail, but the question will be, based on this assessment, how can we get the best ones? So the first very simple thing is I would like to explain very quickly this assessment. We have 5 main or major activities. So and you're going to understand, looking at these activities, that we're covering the complete spectrum of roles in purchasing procurement. So we have activities around leading the extended enterprise, over managing the purchasing function professionally, strategy and process implementation, sourcing and managing suppliers for engaging them with suppliers, in managing operational activities. If I go a bit in detail, you're going to see that, in fact, as I just said, this set of activities really for CPOs. When you look at involve supplier in strategy definition, participate in M&A, develop partnership and alliance, develop and improve relation with internal partner. So this is for CPOs, it's for head of, it's for directors. When we look at these ones, the set of managing purchasing function professionally is for manager, is for director, build organization budget, measure, review and report organization, develop, align, communicate purchasing strategies, ensure compliance, manage systematically. So you see it's pretty high level. If I move forward, strategy and process implementation, we're entering here more in a category buyer or category managers. We speak about prepare functional and technical description, obtain competitive offers, write and contract the PO, drive a TCO optimization. When we move to sourcing, we're entering in the operational role, stretching but operational role, build material budget, assess quality and qualify and select suppliers, assess improve suppliers, building SRM. And the last one, it's really about operation. So it's a role of buyer, the ones perhaps who are even in the transaction, optimize supply chain, manage and optimize inventory, manage order to pay, and so on and so forth. So as you saw, these 5 different block of activities help us with these activities to cover the complete the complete portfolio of different roles you may have in the organization. We still can add some activities based on very specific roles you may have, but basically normally with this library of activities, we're covering the complete spectrum of your roles. Now, the activities, we have 6 blocks of competencies. The first block of competence are competence around foundation, of the foundation elements, the basics. A block around competence on TCO, competence on the process, competence on strategy, competencies on market, and competency on organization and system. So as you understand that these competences are fitting these different activities we spoke about, and the activities are aligned on different roles you may have in the organization. So now, the point just to very simple principle on some examples. So you see, it's about questionnaire, about theory, and it's about simulation for checking what you know to do. Again, I'm insisting on one point. This assessment is not about I think I'm good compared to negotiation, compared to cost. I'm much better in negotiation than cost. We're not asking participants to ask if they're good, if they think they are good. We just ask them to prove they are good and to prove where they have to be improved. So basically, it's over multiple choice question, insisting, and also simulation to say, hey, here there are a gap. And the gap vis-a-vis what? And this is what's important is if we want to improve and if we want to go toward the best, we have to know who are the best. And this is one of the key points is some of the measurements we need to have to go forward and to improve. So you understand that the 4th part, after understanding the different profiles, after understanding how we build the tool, is to assess, to evaluate the skills to perform as the best in class. And the idea, just to give you an information, over the year, today we are at the 4th generation of this tool. We're going to start the 5th generation. This tool has been created in the year 2000. We have over 20,000 people who have been using these tools in the 9 different languages around the world. So if we say we have 20,000 who have been using the tool, if we look at buyer, we may have 5 or 7 or 8,000 buyers, for instance. So and keep this in mind. I'll be back on. So a lot of people, a big database to run. One point again, it's when I say it's touchy. When I speak about people, we are very strict on confidentiality of data, RHIPD, and so on and so forth. So we're working strongly with this information. We work a lot in Germany, we work at Council, we work a lot in France, in Italy, in the States, in England. So it's working perfectly well if we're transparent on what we're doing with the data. And this is key. We are very strict on confidentiality of data. So now, you understood that we have activities, we have the competence, we want to get the best ones. The question is how to measure the best ones. So we need a grid, we need a measurement system. And this is our measurement system. And this is very important to understand. In fact, we're going to measure knowledge and know-how. And instead of saying you have 0 or you have 100, we have been trying to define what is 0. So we divided in 5 levels, if you want. 0 to 20 is no knowledge or no practice. 20 to 40, basic knowledge, basic conceptual knowledge, and no independence need to be managed by someone. 40 to 60, knowledge of concepts and procedures. Know-how is a lot of practice in routine situation, but need advice in unusual situation. 60 to 80, it's a good conceptual knowledge. And fully autonomous, know how to analyze correctly the cause and effects, and 80 to 100, excellent conceptual knowledge, capacity to transmit knowledge to others, and is a master somehow, able to apply in most situations with complete autonomy. So what we say here is not only a question of I have a good grade. The point is to be capable to give a good understanding about this score, to say, hey, where I am. I'm in between 40 and 60. Okay, but what does it mean? It means that I'm not bad. I'm pretty good in some routine situation or some knowledge of concepts and procedures. So, and perhaps it's enough for my job. In fact, it's perhaps more than enough for my job. So again, we have to relate that to what you're doing and how you're going to use for. Perhaps I need this, is good. Perhaps I need much more. So it's not a score to say pass or fail. It's the score to improve or not in function of what you're doing. And this is always the case. It's related to what you're doing in your position. I may not good in legal, but in my job, I don't need legal. So it's more than enough if I'm just in 40, 60. Now, if I change position, perhaps I will need more. So, and again, it's very important, and people very frequently forget this relation in between what you're doing and the score you have, which is important to have a look at. I'm just going to go back on this measurement system is very important, and we have to take that into consideration to go a bit further. So you understand these are the different scores we may get. So now, just an example of a report. So if you look at a price cost breakdown, my score, so it's in individual report. My score is 62.46. In know-how, meaning practice, I have 70%, and knowledge 60%. So I'm better in know-how than in knowledge. So I need perhaps to improve a bit my theory. Now the group is my peer, my colleague in the same company. The average, the mean of my group is 65.66. It means that I am not as good as the group. Okay, I'm under the group level. And if you look at the group level, if you look at the more in the market, so market, I'm getting back to my example, we have 20,000 people went through, we have perhaps 5,000 buyers, and I'm a buyer. So the market, the average of the market is 71. So meaning that the average of a buyer of my company is under the average of market. And when you look at the best of the market, the 25% best answers are 83. So what does it mean? It means that I'm not as good as my colleague, and my colleague are not as good as the market, which are far away from the top one. So here, the important point here is to understand that you have a position, and if you want to improve, it to decide which target. Here, I give you a target, the best, the top 25. So they are the best of the best in the market. And there are 25 best answers, individual best answers, coming from a lot of different companies. It's not from one company. So I'm comparing, this is totally virtual. These are the 25 best answers for this for these questions. So if I want to improve drastically, I'm going to compare my score to this 25%. If I want to improve in the first step, I'm going to compare to my peers. I'm going to compare to the market, to average. Another way, so this is a benchmark we propose. Benchmark vis-a-vis the database, vis-a-vis the best ones. Another way to benchmark is to put a target here. You say, well, we're so far away from the best one. Let's put first a reachable objective, a reachable target, and we put 70. And we say, hey, first time you're going to first to improve to go from 62 to 70 because this is the first step in our improvement process. So the idea here is not only to define job roles, is not only to define job role vis-a-vis what you're doing, understanding about the competence you need, but it's also to vis-a-vis the market or vis-a-vis a target to see how far you are to say how to improve. And you understand that here, when we look at that here, I'm better in know-how than in knowledge. That means that I have to improve knowledge. How are you going to improve knowledge? I'm going to improve knowledge by theory. So you say, it may be nice, you attend a course on cost. In the other way around here, when you look at the first one, pushing levers, I'm much better in knowledge than know-how. meaning that I don't need a course. I need improvement action through coaching. So here you understand that you're going to have a score vis-a-vis some best in class, and now you're going to have a score for your theory you have or for the know-how you have. And based on that, it's a selected process of the improvement, whether for your theory, improving your theory, or for improving your practices. If you have good theory, it's useless to improve it again because you have the right level. What you need is coaching to improve how you do it. So this is the individual report you may have. We're going to have the same report, similar report for the manager consolidated report. We say, okay, we are 20% in my group, my team. I'm looking at the negotiation. We have the average of the negotiation group is 57. The 25 best answer of our group is 66. When we look at the market, the average is 59. So we are under the average of the market, which is not good. An average is an average, meaning that you have people who are much better and people who are lower. So we are among the ones who are not good on the market. And when we look at the best in class, we are 74. So even our best in our company are not as good as the best one. So the point here, again, this is a way for improvement. So you can improve individual vis-a-vis a group, you can improve a team vis-a-vis the market, and so on and so forth. So the idea is, why do you want to improve and how you're going to improve, which are key. And the very interesting thing is to be at the level of the best. The idea is really to understand what the best, in terms of knowledge and know-how, and then after to say, hey, how can we improve? And we can improve with some trainings, we can improve with some coaching, as we say, and it's very important to understand that. So here, just as conclusion on this assessment tool, it's to understand that each individual is going to get a individual report on skills. This report on skill is going to be compared to my team. So I'm going to get a team report or a consolidated report. It's going to give access for improvement action plans, going to give some collective improvement action plan, while for each individual, we're going to have an individual action plan. So again, is the individual vis-a-vis what is doing, and this action plan is related to what the person is doing. The team is taking into consideration these different members to see how we can improve collectively and individually. Again, I'm a conductor, but also I'm a coach, and I need different profile, different competence in my team because they're not doing the same thing. And again, it's very important to remind that if we go back to a crashing matrix, I may have somebody which is specialized for leverage, another which is specialized for the stretching, and so on and so forth. And at the end, it's already to develop an action plan for this for improving these different skills vis-a-vis the best through the benchmark of best vis-a-vis a target we can fix. Just perhaps as a conclusion, as we say, it's our 30th anniversary. We went through a lot of crises this year, and people, as we say, is the most important asset, and we have to understand how to improve again and to maintain this improvement. So if I go back, so competence have to be linked to activities and not the same competence for everybody. And you have sometimes some assessments not taking care about the jobs, but saying that in procurement purchasing, everybody's doing more or less following the same process, and we should have the same competence, except that the CPO of the director must have better scores than the buyers, but basically everybody is buying, everybody is following a process, and so on and so on. Which is true in a sense, but it's totally wrong in another sense because the manager is managing much more than a buyer, and so on and so forth. So what we're saying, we have to identify clearly the different jobs, to identify clearly the activities, to identify clearly the specific competence for each activities, and to assess in function of what people are doing and in function of what the team is doing. So this is the first aspect, that to relate that to a category strategy, and then the strategy is implemented to support and is supported by an organization. So what I'm doing, which is the strategy for my category, and what are the other ones, and what is the organization to take into consideration. This is a very crucial point, and it's a pity, but this is very frequently forgotten. Another point, which is a bold here, individual competence have to be assessed within a group, within a group of persons to get the best one's specific task. So again, I have a team, and I want to assess everybody for the role he's playing. Okay, a goalkeeper is a goalkeeper. You're not going to ask him to goal in the other team. So exceptionally, very rarely, but normally the goalkeeper is much more to try to stop a goal rather than to put a goal. And this is exactly the same in your team. Just ask what the guy has to do and what the competencies he should have. Perhaps tomorrow you're going to have people who are going to select supplier, but perhaps over you're going to have some people who are negotiating. I don't think it's possible, because you start negotiating since the first moment you're going to have a relation with the supplier. But I think what's important is to have profile per quadrant, as we said, because the way of doing is totally different. And as we say, we need more and more an empathy, which is very important. And two more competencies, if we want to add, is taking into consideration the market, taking into consideration the technologies, taking into consideration the company strategies. Market are very fluctuant these days. You see what's going on semiconductors. You could see what's going on before on other elements. And the market is very volatile. And I think it will be growing in this sense. The market is global. We know that. We have more and more technology. So some people may be a bit lost. So we need specialized people for special things, and we need to go further on this element. And again, I'm insisting on, you're going to say I'm a bit dumb, but I'm insisting on the point that the profile of the person you're looking for is really associated to what the person is doing. You're not recruiting a buyer. You're recruiting a buyer for quadrant for buying leverage, and whatever the leverage is. You're recruiting a buyer for strategy, somebody who knows about the market or somebody who knows about stakeholders in terms of technical issues. And this is important, very important to listen. And as a conclusion, I would say we are in this 30th anniversary. We're working for improving competence of people. We just wrote a book which is Purchasing Fifth Generation. And this book is also about people, it's about profiles, and it's about organization. And I think it's important to get in mind that if we are a school, we're a school for improving. We work on future. It says frequently a school of thought for improving people, for improving the job, for improving the purchasing and procurement. You're not going to improve purchasing, procurement, supply chain without improving people. So these are these all elements we have to take into consideration. Thank you very much. Some minutes to answer some questions. Explain in barrier can minimum risk. So we know that I'm going to specifically in. We know that risks management is a question of the frequency of probability. Is of this. What is the importance of one risk? What is the importance of flood, for instance? What the probability of getting flood, and what is the impact we're doing? And you're going to have some elements to take into consideration. Identify these different elements. You can implement action plan. The point, if we look at the risk management for the crisis, I think action plan for crisis time, but I'm not sure that. So whether trusting it was a global pandemic or whether trusting has not been listened, the fact is that not only the company but even the government not so good in terms of implementing action plan at the beginning. So the risk is not only for purchasing. When we speak about risk in purchasing, we frequently we think about financial. Don't this the company risk are the most important because the companies are to support their suppliers, and it's working pretty well. I think the most important you see panic, you see problems, you see floods, and this is much to anticipate. So we have to work on. I think today is to take just to summarize one point. I did not insist, perhaps is we have to move from a buyer who was technically competent on cost on negotiation and so on to a soft buyer. Doesn't mean that in terms of soft skills, and we have to take these elements. So of the behavior, it's important for it seems there is a connection issue with me. I'm sorry, I don't have a problem with you. For just if some issues, I just want to say first, do not to ask more information. If we can send you logging. We have a question, a survey about this element. Please go back on the link and fill the questionnaire. We'll be giving you more information on this survey. We are willing to share this information, but there was not enough answers. And we send you this information, and we'll be sending you the link and all this information. I was very pleased. I don't know if you listened to me, but I was very pleased for this starting this 30th anniversary to start speaking on competence and on people because it has always been my life, and I'm very so honored to be with you today for speaking about what challenge I'm facing, I've been working on, and still pleased to work on. So thanks very much to be with me and to be with the team here. Team, do not forget to take mask. For more we can speak together. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.